April 30th, 2015. From El Cajon, California, this is episode 71 of You Can Bet on That. Hi, everybody. Welcome to You Can Bet on That, a podcast for the recreational gambler. My name is Mark Duvall, and sitting next to me is Dr. Mike.
Hello.
Mike, you told a story on a previous episode about your brother going to Harrah's, North Kansas City.
Right.
And kind of an unusual situation at the slot machine where he was basically, it seemed like he was getting paid $1,199 multiple times.
Hand paid.
Yeah, hand paid, but to basically circumvent the W-2G. It seemed like the casino was doing it to circumvent having to give them the W-2G.
Right.
But now you talked to him here.
I talked to him this last weekend.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to clarify the whole thing.
Right.
Because when he told me the story was when he was there.
Okay.
In Kansas City, telling me over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it came a little more clear this time, although he could not remember the exact dollar amounts.
Okay.
But he did hit, he said, a jackpot on the machine, and the machine would not pay him.
Okay.
Because it had to be hand paid.
Okay.
And so when the lady came around, she paid him, and it was under $1,200.
Okay.
Okay. But talking to him in more depth, it seems to me like the jackpot he hit may have not been over $1,200.
Okay, and that makes more sense to me too. Yeah,
right, because he was a bit confusing on that. So he was paid the jackpot, but he still had a bunch of money on the machine.
Right. Okay, so they were paying off the jackpot. So even though he might have had, say, $3,000 on the machine total, the jackpot that hit was under $1,200.
Yeah,
and that's what they hand paid.
Right. It was probably one of those where they pay $11.99 or something. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And so they hand paid him that. He was very disappointed because it took forever and he couldn't do anything. He just had to sit there and wait.
Yeah.
So, but then he got paid a little later again on another one. And that's where it kind of got confusing to him because he didn't know why this was happening. And he said it was a smaller jackpot, but for some reason she came and hand paid him on that.
All right. So it sounds like what we originally thought, that the casino was trying to kind of do a runaround here, which there's no reason they would. Why would they?
No.
And get in trouble.
They had him sign a form, but it wasn't a WG form. It was just a thing saying that he had received a certain amount of money, a payout.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't take his name or his social security number or anything.
You just signed something saying, I've been paid, like a receipt.
Right, like I've been paid.
Okay.
And so that's what screwed him up because he thought, he's going to get some kind of form to fill out with because we have in the past.
Yeah.
But he didn't have to do that.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, I guess it kind of clears it up.
Yeah.
At least,
I don't know that we're still going to get all the exact details on that.
No.
Because now his memory's getting fuzzy about how much he won. And,
all right.
he knows he won, but he doesn't know the exact dollar amount.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So probably nothing fishy going on there. Speaking of slots, a couple weeks ago before we left for the casino, as I was leaving the house, my wife said, all right, go out and win us a new washer.
Okay.
Because our washer's on the fritz, right?
Yeah.
And so it got me thinking, wouldn't that be great if you just could go to a bank of slots for the washer?
For a machine or something?
Yeah, or something like that. You go into a casino and there's the bank of slots for a washing machine. There's another one for a dishwasher, another one for a fridge.
Yeah. You know what you
Instead of the cars and everything, they actually have them up there.
You don't see the cars anymore.
Not as much.
No, hardly ever.
But that's still, sometimes a prize that you can win.
Yeah.
Right? Even if they don't have the car actually
you saw
out there.
A car?
Actually, a car in the casino?
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I did, but I'm sure they're there still.
I mean, it used to be. Remember 20 years ago or so?
Almost every casino.
Every casino would have a car or several cars, right, in the casino.
Yeah.
And you could take the car, you could take the cash payout or whatever.
Right. I think this would be great. Vacuum cleaner They're just household appliances, right?
Just every time I got 3 sevens, I get another, mixer,
Yeah, that's right. Get a ton of blenders at home. Can I get the cash value, like $20?
I've got 20 blenders. I don't need another blender.
Anyway, it sounds, of course, if they actually did it, I think everybody would make fun of it.
It would be a great promo for some casino to just put like a washer and dryer set instead of a car. Just, on top of a bank of machines, there's a washer. This is what you could win.
I think it'd be hilarious.
How would you get it home?
I
though?
bet. Well, they'll deliver it, but
You'd have to have delivery?
I think people would play it.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? If they needed a washer and dryer.
All right, heads up, casinos. We don't all need Lamborghinis or
Right.
Teslas, right?
Well, wait,
Just
speak
put up
for
a-
yourself. I do need a Lamborghini.
All right, a little more slot news here. Now, Adam over at Vegas Fanboy, he was the one who originally pointed us to this story. Here's what happened. This 90-year-old grandmother, her name's Pauline McKee, she was playing a Miss Kitty slot machine at the Isle Casino Hotel in Waterloo, Iowa. You may have seen these Miss Kitty
Yeah,
machines.
I've
They're
seen them.
penny slots,
Right.
right? And the maximum jackpot they have on it is $10,000.
Right. And that's clearly stated on the machine, I would take.
Yeah, and it's on the machine, and that's quite a payout, right? When you think
Right.
about it, I mean, the
Sure.
comparable, like on a dollar slot machine, that'd be like $1 million, right? So
Right.
that's a pretty good price.
Pretty good
yeah.
price.
So-
And I believe on those, like the maximum in, it'd be like $270 or something, right? It's under like $3.
oh yeah, probably something like that. It depends on
So
the
to
machine.
win
but-
10,000, putting $270 in.
yeah, right.
it's
or
not bad.
maybe $5. I don't know how much.
Yeah, it's
those-
probably not above 5.
I've never played the Miss Kitty, but yeah, I don't think it would be above 5. Well, anyway, at one point she's playing like 25 cents, right? And the video screen comes up and indicates that she won 185 credits, which is $1.85, right?
Okay.
But also on the display is a notice of a bonus award of almost $41.8 million.
Nice. Now that's a nice payout.
That's a good payout for a 90-year-old
Or she could get a
grandmother.
washing machine.
That's from Maytag. Yeah, that's right. She chose to take the cash.
She chose to take the 41.8 million. Interesting.
So, they're sitting there and they're excited. And of course, they call over the floor or whatever. And, they start
Right.
to investigate. And, as the casino investigate, I think they stayed overnight and put them up in a room or something like that. But as the casino's investigating, it's like this machine doesn't pay out, anything more than $10,000.
Right.
It was obviously some kind of software bug. And so they refused to pay. So McKee, she actually sued for the money. Said, hey, look, it said, $41.8 million. But the court came back and said, no, the casino doesn't have to pay because the message on the screen constituted a gratuitous promise. Okay, that's the legalese that they used. It was a
Okay.
gratuitous promise. And clearly, if you looked at the machine, again, it said, 10,000 was the max.
Right.
And also, like on most slot machines, there's a sign on it that says malfunction voids all pays and plays. Now, whether or not this was a malfunction, is open to debate, right? Is a software bug a malfunction, right?
Well, there's probably some engineer just rolling over laughing because he put this bug in to come at a certain point. Just somebody's going to win 41.8.
or he
million.
lost his job.
Yeah.
One of those two things.
Or, and I hate to be cynical, but this could very easily be the case where this lady's got a grandson
Mm-hmm.
who works in software development somewhere, and this is all planned.
That's
She's
right.
the mastermind.
That's right. She put in a certain sequence of coins to get it to work. Yeah.
You know who her grandson is?
Who's that?
It's the guy that flushed the chips down the toilet.
That's it.
Yeah, what's his name? I forgot his name.
Oh, that's right. We were going to start calling each other by that name. No,
Yeah.
I think this software developer, well, if it was a mistake, then it's the flusher.
Yeah.
If it was intentional, I don't think it was the flusher. The flusher didn't seem too smart to me. Okay. But here's the thing, okay? Normally I would say, oh, yeah, the casino messed up and, even though it was a third party, they should be. But $41 million, right?
Right.
And I mean, according to the casino's attorney, and this could very well have been true, $41 million would have bankrupted the casino.
Probably,
right?
right? They'd have a hard time coming up with that in a day.
So I'm kind of torn. I guess I kind of have to say, yeah, they probably shouldn't pay out the.
Well, I mean, if I'm being serious,
Yeah.
I'm siding with a casino on this.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously a mistake,
Right.
right? I mean, no machine of that nature pays 41 million.
Sure.
It would have to be some progressive machine that, for years has built up some huge jackpot.
Yeah.
And this wasn't the case. So it's obviously a mistake.
It's a mistake, but what if there had been some other mistake that wasn't a $41 million mistake?
Right.
What if she was getting, $500 every other spin, something like that?
Or what if it was just like, oh, you got 41,000?
Yeah, maybe. I might
With that,
I might
what
change
would
my
happen
tune.
then? Yeah.
I don't know where I draw the line. Somewhere
Right.
between, 10,041 million is where I draw the line. But because normally I would say, hey, it's the casino's mistake. They've got to pay for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a case.
Sleep on this tonight and get back to me. I would like to know where the line is.
Oh, okay.
Where your personal line
I'll come up
is.
with a line.
Yeah,
do you remember
just the number?
There's an old episode, the old TV show Taxi, where Louis, his house burned down. Reverend Jim accidentally burned his house
right.
down.
I remember that.
And so his Reverend Jim's father is going to pay Louis to repair it. And his father's this billionaire, right? So
Right.
Louis is just agonizing trying to come up with the exact right amount that he should ask for.
Right.
You know, it's
It
not
can't be too much.
Doesn't want to be too much or too little or whatever, right? So then that's what it's going to be me in the middle of the night.
You're going to be
maybe it's a $500,000. No, that's too high. It's got maybe 100,000. Yeah. So I'll get back to you tomorrow. And listeners, don't expect to hear back my answer because I don't know how hard I'm going to really think about this. All right, a couple more news items. So a little while back, MGM announced that they would no longer allow cash on the poker tables in their poker rooms. No more cash. In other words, you have to buy chips and play with the chips on the table.
Okay.
And Wynn has since followed suit, Wynn and Encore. And just recently, Venetian also followed suit. So it's no more cash on the table. And none of them have given a reason why. Although the speculation is that it might have to do with money laundering and something like that, where the casino needs to keep track of all the money that's coming in and out of the casino.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
It seems kind of strange, though, because at a poker table, the casino's taking a rake, but the money's just being redistributed to the players, as opposed to, going in and out of the casino's hands. It seems like no cash would be a bigger deal at the table games. No cash on the blackjack table, no cash on the craps table, something like that.
Right,
but,
so they could keep a better accurate count of money coming in.
Yeah. So it's still speculation as to why.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be a weird way to launder money, though.
That's what I'm thinking
poker.
too.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know.
One thing that is nice from a player's standpoint, though, is if, say, you're in a no-limit game, if a guy's got just a big stack of bills,
right,
you can't really tell how much it is, right? Maybe he's got some 20s. I mean, it looks like a stack of hundreds, but maybe there's 20s in there or ones or who knows.
Well, that could be your answer right there.
Well, I don't think so, though, because, this has been going on for years. Has it been a problem? Nobody said it's been a problem.
Yeah, well, maybe there was a problem somewhere with somebody doing, like you said, having a stack and then turning out, it's, looks like it's all 20s, but there's hundreds in the middle or something. And so they have a bigger, stack than people thought they had, turned into a problem. So now in order to eliminate that, all chips.
Yeah, or opposite, they have a smaller stack than it seems like, right? And people think they're going up against a big stack, and so they're afraid to play against them.
And they're afraid to play against them. Yeah, it could go either way. But in either case, chips are better because you know exactly what they've got.
Right. Now, Caesars is not following suit, and it seems like they don't have any plans to right now.
Wow.
There was one article that I read where it sounded like Caesars was saying, oh, well, we don't really host the big games here in town. The big games are over at Aria, which is MGM,
right?
And, Venetian and Wynn, and, our games aren't as big. Now, again, I guess if you have smaller games, there's less likely to be money laundering.
Right.
But,
there's less likely to be somebody with a huge stack of money.
Yeah, right. I think that's what the thing. Anyway, so it looks like that's kind of the trend, although Caesars, at least right now, is not following suit. This happened just this week, this next article, at the Casino del Sol in Tucson, Arizona. They have introduced into their poker room a poker side bet. It's the first side bet in any poker room, in any casino, as far as anyone knows.
That we know of, yeah.
And it's called the Hot Poker Spot Side Bet. And you make the bet when playing Texas Hold'em. You actually make the side bet before the hand is dealt, right?
Yeah.
And you can put anywhere between $1 to $25, at least at Casino del Sol. It looked like the limits were $1 to $25 in this betting circle before the hand is dealt. And then at the end of the hand, Texas Hold'em, if using your 2 down cards and 3 from the board.
Okay.
So you can't play the board or play just 1 from your hand. When I read this article, it was basically you have to use your 2 hole cards and 3 from the board. If you make a straight or a better, the side bet wins.
Okay. So you can't just play the board. That's
correct.
It's an interesting thing.
Right. Yeah, so, and I could understand that, right? Because then a lot of people would win, right? If the straight came out on the board or a royal flush or something, right?
They'd all win, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, you get paid at odds. A straight is 10 for 1, a flush 15 for 1, full house 25 for 1, 4 of a kind 100 for 1. straight flush 200 for one, and royal flush 1,000 for one. And I'm sure that there's a significant house edge on it. There always is a pretty good house edge on a side bet.
When I looked at this, though, I kind of thought, well, these are high. 10 for one for a straight?
Yeah, but keep in mind, it's got to be, 2 from your hand.
Yeah, you
and
do have
3
to
out
use
there,
the 2.
Right, yeah.
Right, because a lot of times you'll hit a straight with 1 card from your hand and 4 on the board. You just happen to have the jack that fits in the middle or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, that does make it a lot harder.
Yeah, I didn't run an analysis on it. I'm sure they did, so I'm just guessing at this point. This is interesting. Now, certainly from a casino standpoint, they love this because a poker room doesn't make a lot of money for them.
Oh, this is
right?
going to make a ton of money.
If people bet it. Now, what do you think? Do you think, because the poker players are a different ilk from, the rest of the casino patrons,
That's
right?
true. That's true, because a lot of the tight poker players might say, I'm not throwing away. They're sitting there waiting for a hand.
Yeah.
If they're betting $5 on the bonus one every time and they haven't played the last 15 hands, that could eat into their significantly when they do win a hand. That could eat into their profit.
Sure. Again, this was not made clear in the article or anywhere else. Let's say you win 200 for one. Well, now does that become part of your poker stack?
Right.
Or, is that something, I assume it's a side thing, but at the same time,
how do you keep your money separate?
Yeah, right. So they weren't clear on that. Also,
you can't muck your cards.
Well, that was the other thing is I assume, and again, it was not made clear anywhere, but I assume that since this is a completely separate side bet, it has nothing to do with the outcome of the actual poker hand.
Right.
Right. Let's say you make the bet and you get something dismal, like, 7-4. Right. But then it turns out you would have made a straight. I'm assuming you don't actually muck your cards. Maybe you put your cards in some special area.
Must have some special area. No, you couldn't muck them because that bet is still alive until the hand is.
Now, if you really did have to play to the end.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a whole.
Well, then nobody would make that bet.
I don't think so.
I would never make that bet.
So, but, if reading the literature that I could find, it basically said it's completely separate from the rest of the game. So I'm assuming that even if you fold your poker hand, that this side bet is still alive, which is the case with a lot of side bets at poker-based table games.
3-card poker and stuff.
Yeah.
You can get out of your hand, but some of your bets are still working.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I kind of hope that it catches on. But again, we'll see.
It would make poker a lot more interesting.
Poker players are used to that slow pace, though, and maybe they're not, dying to get more money out there. But some might be, so.
Yeah, there's, it really does depend. There's some aggressive poker players who would do that, and then there's some guys who sit there forever and never make a move.
Yeah.
They would not do this, I guarantee you that.
We'll see how this pans out, and we'll see if more casinos start coming up with side bets, and if the poker players are going to play.
It's an interesting idea, though. Whether it catches on or not, I like it.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. It's Mark here. After we recorded this episode, I found out some more information about the hot poker spot side bet, so I wanted to make sure I got this information out. You make the wager. You don't have to make it before the hand is completely dealt. You have to make the wager before you receive your second hole card. So you get your first hole card, and then at that point you can make the wager. I'm not sure if there's any advantage to that, but there you go. Okay, we were correct in that you need to use your 2 hole cards and exactly 3 cards from the board to make your hand. However, it does turn out that you have to play the hand to completion in order to win the side bet. In other words, if you fold, you cannot win that side bet, even if you ultimately would have made a qualifying hand. The one exception to that is if it comes down to heads up and you fold when you're just playing against one other person. If you do have a qualifying hand, you can show it and get paid. That's the one exception where you can fold and still win the wager. All right, back to the show.
So, big fight this weekend, of course, right? Mayweather-Pacquiao.
Right.
And Kentucky Derby's on the exact same day.
Right. The Kentucky Derby is earlier in the day, and then the fight in the night.
What a day. Can you imagine being in Vegas for this? Yeah.
Oh, there's baseball games that day. There's NHL hockey games that day.
Right.
Playoffs.
Right. Basketball playoffs.
And there's basketball playoffs that day.
Huge. It's going to be a madhouse over there. Yeah. Now, you know what I'll do? I think they drew numbers today for the Kentucky Derby. I didn't see, what they were, but take a look at everything. Take a look at the field. Let me know what you want to bet on. I'll go to Verona like tomorrow or Friday and make bets for everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
I have no idea.
Well, here's the thing. Check out Dr. Kev over at the Tipping the Odds Las Vegas podcast. He's been putting out some separate podcasts just on thoroughbred racing.
Okay.
And he released a special episode of it's called Finding an Edge for the Thoroughbred Handicapper. And just this week he released a special version just for the Kentucky Derby.
He's a handicapper?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's his
Yeah. He
thing?
takes it real seriously. Yeah. And he went through some of the horses to kind of watch for and that might be worth a bet depending on how, the odds move. As you get closer. But the bet that I'm going to make, it's going to have to be like Thursday night or Friday night. So it's not going to be close to post time or anything. But look over everything. And I'd recommend to any of our listeners, too, to check out this Dr. Kev's analysis because, he does go into
I'm not
quite
a
bit of depth on
big
it.
sports bettor,
Right.
right? So the fight, it's interesting to me, but it's not something I'd bet on.
Well, but at the same time, it's not like you watch horse racing without betting on it.
No.
You do watch other sports without betting on it, but you don't watch horse racing without betting on it.
Horse racing, if you're going to the races, you have to bet.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big sports bettor. And here's why.
Yeah.
Because sports betting is just like playing craps at a casino party,
Yeah.
right? When
Like at a charity event or something?
event. Yeah,
Okay.
charity event.
All right.
When you're in a casino and you're playing craps,
Yeah.
it goes a certain way. You have some wins. Most of the time you have some losses.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Same thing with horse racing. When you're at the track
Yeah.
and you're just, making $2 bets or something,
Yeah.
you'll win a race or two here and there and it'll be okay. You put real money out there, you start betting, you get wiped out.
Okay.
And that's what happens to me when I am at a casino versus a charity event.
All right. Where's this going?
Well, I was going to say, I went to a charity event this
Okay.
last weekend
All right.
where they had a craps table.
Okay. Was it a lot like just all casino party? They have blackjack tables?
They had
and-
blackjack tables.
Yeah,
they had a
so-
poker table.
Okay.
There was a
And-
lot of other stuff going on, but this was one of the side events.
Right. And so this is California. It's charity. You're not playing for real money.
No.
But you're playing for chips that might get you like raffle tickets or
Raffle
something.
tickets,
to-
exactly.
yeah,
At the end, you can turn in your chips. You get raffle tickets. They had a few gifts, which they had like 5 gifts, which, as a matter of fact, my wife won 2 of the 5. Okay. So
Dr. Mike, you should be ashamed of yourself.
It did
you
pay
probably,
out for
you
us.
probably bought in for like, $5,000.
No. Everybody who came to this charity event got a chip, which they could turn in for $300 of casino chips.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Okay. So everyone started with 300.
Okay. All right.
And unlike a real casino,
Mm-hmm.
the rolls were fantastic for the hour and a half that it went on. And I turned $300 into like $5,500. And I couldn't even max out. They had low limits because the people running the casino party didn't have a lot of chips.
Okay.
So I couldn't even max out a lot of my bets. I had to stop at a certain point.
Okay, right.
And of course it was just, and it was real dice. I mean, the guy was rolling. People were rolling.
Sure. Yeah.
Didn't even make it around the table once in an hour and a half. So we got raffle tickets and, my wife won a couple of prizes. But the funny thing is that why doesn't that happen in real life?
How much do you think you would have won if you'd been in a real casino?
Well over,
with-
well over 10,000.
Really?
Yeah. Well over 10,000.
Starting with 300.
Starting with 300, well over 10,000 easily. Because the hard ways, they would only let me go to 100 because the guy didn't even have $500
Oh, you're
chips.
hitting hard ways, yeah.
Yeah. And I was hitting hard ways. I was hitting everything. Oh, and it was double odds too.
Really? So
It was
only
double odds because they don't have a lot of chips. So yeah, it would have been well over 10,000, if not 15,000. See, and it's just like the horses. If I put real money down on a Kentucky Derby, even if I listen to Dr. Kev and take, his odds on favorite, it'll probably lose. I'll lose my money. If I goof around with you and bet you $1 on a horse, it'll win.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
And that's the way it goes.
right.
Why is that? If anyone out there knows why that happens, I mean, is there some Murphy's Law that I'm unaware of?
I do know that one of our theories that comes up in our poker home game quite a bit is the more you whine, the more you win.
Right.
Okay. So maybe
well,
this
then I ought to be a billionaire. Okay. this whining has got to help. All right. When we go to the casino next time,
Yeah.
I am going to whine like you have never heard whining before.
Excellent. Great.
I'm going to be so agitated about everything.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward
Just
to this.
every roll, I'm just going to whine about, oh, look at the way he's picking it up.
Okay, good.
Look at the way he's shaking those dice.
Be real abusive to the dealers, too.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll do
when we're
that
there.
too.
That'll probably
and
help.
if that works, I'm going to do it every week.
Hey, thanks to everyone who's been clicking through our Amazon link. Remember, whenever you're going to buy something through Amazon, go to our page first, youcanbetonthat.com, and click through our Amazon link at the top of the page. That way, when you make a purchase, We get a little kickback that helps cover the costs of hosting the show, and it doesn't cost you a thing. You'll pay the same price just like normal. We got an email from listener Sue, who may or may not be my sister.
Okay.
Let's just see what she has to say. On a recent podcast, Dr. Mike mentioned spending 24 hours in the bathroom upon return to San Diego after eating at Carl's Jr. on the way home from a Vegas trip. Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, right.
It was Thanksgiving weekend, so
Right.
it took us forever to get to your house to drop you off. Continuing with Sue's email, this wasn't the only gastrointestinal distress story Dr. Mike has mentioned during and or after a Vegas trip. Mike also related some GI trouble after eating at Giada at the Cromwell in Las Vegas recently, and although he didn't attribute the problem to that meal specifically, it was an issue nonetheless. You've also described the fish and chips at Harrah's Southern California. Disgusting. There seems to be a trend. Dr. Mike, can you determine if there is a clear, direct link between you and Vegas/post-Vegas/casino meals and food poisoning/GI distress, or is this merely a coincidence in your opinion? And what does that mean for the rest of us who enjoy eating in Vegas and other casinos, but also have a long drive home after we're finished?
Oh, well, that's a very complicated question,
Okay,
Sue.
yeah.
Because, there's probably some link there. Although I will say, in your examples, the Carl's Jr. was after a big loss.
Yep, and Paul and I didn't get sick. We ate at Carl's Jr.
I know. The Giada, though, was not after any loss or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if there was a win or loss in the fish and chips, but you have to admit that was gross. You were there.
Yeah, it was disgusting. Well, you didn't even finish that. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't even eat that.
Yeah.
So is there a link? Maybe a loose link. And I mean loose as in loose.
Yeah.
But, it's hard to say. I'm going to have to answer this question with, time will tell.
I guess when you're in Vegas too, the excitement, and if people are like us, we're not really eating very well when we go there.
No.
A lot of times we're getting stuff quickly and, eating at strange hours. And
right. And
so,
our schedule's off and you're not sleeping
You were
good
right,
and everything. So that could have something to do with the GI distress. Or it could just be that I'm getting old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of old people get GI distress from breathing.
So I hope that answers your question, Sue.
Enough about my bowel movements. Now on with the show.
All right, let's go on to our voicemails. Remember, call our voicemail hotline at 951-292-4377. That's 951-2-WAGERS.
9512-WAGERS.
And we'll probably play your clip on the show. Let's hear from Victor.
Hey, it's Victor, and now I'm going to plan on going to Vimp.
Wow, that was concise.
Yeah, very concise.
Yeah, Vimp. So excellent. Hopefully, listeners will be able to come and see us at Vimp. So once again, Vimp, it's going to be October 16th through the 18th. This year, they announced right after our last episode that it's going to be hosted again by the D.
Okay.
That explains the 3D motif that they've been using for the announcements, because this will be the third year in a row that'll be hosted at the D. And the D has turned out to be a great host for Vimp. In fact, I think we're going to be doing our show on that Sunday.
Okay.
Along with the folks at the Denton, Dallas, and Beyond podcast, Rue, Edwin, and Sparkles. And I think Sparkles on Twitter said that she called Golden Gate, which is the D's sister property, to see about a room, during VIMF. And the operator said, "Oh, are you part of the Vegas Internet Mafia?" So these casinos, the employees know, what it is. It's not just like, "Oh, you're here for what?" I mean, they know about it.
So it's a real event.
It's a real event. That's right. So, hopefully we'll see everybody out there in VIMF in October. Looking forward to it. All right, here's a call from Jason.
Hello, Mike and Mark. This is Jason, a.k.a. Buffalo Yo, giving you a call and just wanted to let you know a little story that happened with me in Atlantic City. And I want to call the story Karma. I went down to the high limit table, blackjack, on a Sunday morning. And there was one gentleman playing, so I asked him, nicely, as I try to do every time before I go to someone's table, "May I sit with you?" Usually, they say yes. Unfortunately, in this situation, the gentleman said no. I said, "Well, I'm going to sit here anyway." And I proceeded to sit down. So as I find out that this gentleman had been gambling all night, and he had been up about $20,000, and now he was only up about $8,000. He was cursing. He was cut off from drinking. Finally, the casino said, "Sir, you need to go home." So as he gets his chips to leave, he drops a $1,000 chip on the floor. I see this, and the floor supervisor sees this. He picks up the chip, puts it on the table, and I ask, what happens if the gentleman does not come and get the chip? He goes, "Well, it will be the casinos." I said, "Well, we're not playing another hand until we see this gentleman come back." So the cashier cage we can see from our table. The gentleman's drunk, goes, cashes out, and he starts walking away. So I quickly run the gentleman down, who had been cursing and yelling, and not being too nice to me as well. I say, Sir, please come back to your table. You left a $1,000 chip." So he comes back to the table. He asks the dealer to please give him some black chips, and he gives me $300. He then gives the dealer $300. At this time, there's another gentleman sitting down. He asks him, "Do you think you deserve any money?" The gentleman said no. So I said, "Well, I think I deserve a little more." He gives me another $100, and he gives the dealer another $100. So the moral of the story is, no matter how people treat you at a casino, karma is always there. The dealer and I got an extra $400, and the gentleman was able to feel a little bit better about himself and walk away with an extra $200. Hope you all enjoyed the story. Talk to you all soon. Buffalo Yo! If you don't bet the Buffalo Yo, you'll probably win a little more.
Nice. Okay. Well done, Jason. Very good.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the guy had any clue the next day that he left him $800.
Between the two of them, yeah.
Yeah. Did he wake up the next morning and had no clue what had gone on? He was so wasted.
Well, it's a good example, though, of like Jason's saying, right? Just be nice to people, even if they're horrible to you. You may get a big tip.
You're right. And it usually does work out in your favor.
I'm wondering, though, honestly, so the floor supervisor picks up this chip.
I was thinking the same thing.
Why wouldn't he immediately
chase the guy down?
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be
if you can see the cage and he's walking towards it, why wouldn't the supervisor just, "Hey, you dropped this. Here you go."
Exactly.
That's terrible.
That doesn't make sense to me.
No,
it's
that's just
we'll just
terrible.
leave it here.
Yeah, if he comes back. If he doesn't, it's ours.
Maybe.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, maybe the supervisor just gotten a lot of abuse all night.
Right. Yeah, that's probably true. He had probably been abused so much, he was like, "Oh, to hell with him."
But I've seen this before. Remember, we had that happen at Harrah's once where, there's a $500 chip and they were, it was like a buzz, like, right. "Oh, we got to find out who this belongs to," right? They were bending over backwards.
They're calling the upstairs to look at the cameras, right?
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is about the guy, we've all been at a table with that guy. We've all been with that guy at a table.
Sure.
And the whole time you're just thinking, just leave, just leave, just leave. But he did the right thing.
Yeah.
So deep down inside, I think minus the alcohol, he's probably an okay person.
Probably a decent guy. Yeah. He didn't just, for giving big tips away.
Yeah. He's probably a decent person minus the alcohol. It's always the alcohol. Sure. Have you ever noticed that?
I have noticed it on occasion. Yeah. All right. One more call from Scott.
Hey guys, this is Scott from Boston. Love the show. I just heard about it on Facebook. I've been listening, and you guys are great. Glad you're dice players like me because I'm interested in your advice on a money management question. Usually I'll bet play the 6 and 8 and play come bets until I get up on a bunch of numbers. Sometimes I'll play, usually actually, until I'm up on as many numbers as I can get up on, and hopefully they keep hitting and I keep playing the ATM machine. But it is a volatile strategy, and you can get a lot of money and odds up on the numbers and lose a lot very quickly. So I'm wondering if you guys have a strategy. How many numbers do you like to go up on? Do you vary it based on how you're doing that night? I know you play a lot of hard ways too, and if you have any kind of strategy for that, but I've a couple of times had dealers suggest, maybe you should just go up on 2 or 3 numbers and then start cashing them in before you go back up on more. Just interested in your opinion of that, the come bet money management strategy. Thanks, guys. Love the show.
That's a good question, Scott.
Yeah. So I would say that I'm kind of on the side of the dealers in this case.
Sure, me too.
Yeah, where it's like, maybe just take, in fact, I do this often too when I'm doing come bets. I'll get 3 numbers, pass line and a couple of come bets. And typically what I will do is I will wait until I've at least made my money back on that shooter
Right.
before I start putting
You'll
out
come
more.
down off a comeback,
Right.
and you'll make a new comeback, go up on a number. Once you've recouped all of your initial wagers,
Right. I've gotten like 3 repeaters.
3 repeaters, then you feel free to get out there a little more.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
take a 4th number.
Right,
See what
exactly.
happens. That's not a bad way to play.
Yeah, and again, this is more to manage your money than anything else because there's certainly no mathematical reason to go on to another number.
No,
In fact,
no.
if you're, the more numbers you bet, the more you're going to lose, right? I mean, it's
Right.
still a losing game. But yeah, from a money management standpoint, at least give yourself a chance to at least make some money back before you start playing with the casino's money, another term I hate, but
Right.
people know what I mean by saying that. So,
As far as hard ways go, now Mark doesn't bet the hard ways.
No.
I bet the hard ways consistently. And that's changed over the years. Remember, I used to bet them, and then for years I didn't bet them.
Sure.
Because they're expensive and they cost a lot of money.
they have a huge house edge.
Edge,
Huge.
yeah. And so, but now I went back to them, and I went back to them for 2 reasons. Number one, because I like it. It's fun,
It's fun.
right? And then this is what I do. I get like a $20, give me all the hard ways at the start of a roll. Okay. And if one of them hits, I parlay it, hoping it'll hit again to have a big payout. So basically, let's say you have a $5 aid, it becomes a $50, you hit it, you get $4.50, and maybe you take it to 100, you collect 400, and you're up for the hard ways for that roll.
Yeah.
However, this is my downfall. Sometimes when I have a $50 hard eight, it loses. I take my place bet that I had and replace the hard way with my winnings.
That's killing
and that's
you.
what kills me.
Yeah.
But, once again, I like to do that because it's my fun way of playing
Right.
to me. But I would not suggest you do that. I would suggest on the hard ways, put $5 out there, say on each number, or $1, whatever your bankroll will allow. And then if you hit one of them, you don't have to parlay it. Just press them all a unit.
Sure, something like that.
Yeah, and then just keep the rest. Then you're ahead for the hard ways, and if another one hits, you're really ahead. That's not a bad way to play at all,
Yeah.
and you still have the fun of hitting the hard ways.
Keeping in mind the hard ways are going to drain your bankroll, so
Right.
bet quite a bit less on them than you're betting on the other quote unquote good bets, like
right.
pass line, like come bets.
Sure. But if you're inclined to play hard ways, that's probably not a bad way to play them.
Yeah.
And then say you have them all on 5 and the 8 hits and you go to 10 on that, and then a easy 8 hits and it comes down, put it back for 5,
Yeah.
Don't put it back for 10 again.
Right.
Start over again.
Yeah.
That's not a bad way to play the hard ways. And as far as comebacks, I agree with Mark.
Yeah, just a few numbers to start with, make your money back on that shooter, and then you can be more aggressive.
And then be more aggressive.
Yeah, and then maybe catch
and
a
of
hot
course,
roll.
this all, getting back to what we always say, this all is determined by your bankroll.
Yes.
I mean, if you have a big enough bankroll, take every number. What the hell?
I've done that in the past
Yeah.
when I had a big bankroll. I just come bet every time, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
when
And
you
see
hit a
what-
big roll, it's great.
and see what happens.
yeah.
Right. And we also, one thing we should mention is we also adjust the way we play as the night goes along, depending on how it's going.
Sure.
And how our bankroll is holding out.
Sure.
And how much time we have left before we have to leave.
Yes.
There are a lot of factors. How drunk you are.
Sure.
Because the alcohol does come into play.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes I'm a little too loud.
Yeah. But, there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Scott. Hey, let's move on to our poker home game segment. We haven't done this for a while.
No.
The poker home game segment is a segment where we talk about poker games that you wouldn't find in a poker room in a casino, but that you might play with your buddies when you get together for a poker home game at your house. And tonight we're going to talk about 3-2-1. This is basically a Texas Hold'em based game. And here's how it works. It's dealt just like Texas Hold'em to start with blinds and everything, and the betting structure is exactly the same in Texas Hold'em. I think this works better as a limit game than no limit, but anyway, Texas Hold'em. After the betting round before the flop, the dealer deals out 3 separate flops. So a total of 9 cards altogether, but 3 separate flops out on the table.
Okay.
Right? Then the regular betting round. Then for the turn, he deals out 2 separate turns. And he kind of puts them out between the 3 flops that are out there, right?
So either of those 2 turns can go with any of the 3 flops.
Right. And then a betting round. And then finally a single card as a river.
Okay.
Right? And the final betting round. And yeah, you make your hand using the 2 of your down cards plus any 3 of the flops combined with either of the turns and finally the single river card.
So how many permeations is this?
So that's 6 because you have 3 choices of flop, 2 choices for turn, and only 1 choice
3
for the river.
3 times 2 times 1.
Yes, exactly.
6.
So 6. And then whoever has the best hand wins.
Okay.
And that's it. It results in some higher hands because there are a lot more combinations out there, right?
Sure,
that kind of thing.
Sure.
It takes a little getting used to because there's so many cards out there.
So consequently good to play with novices.
That's right, exactly.
If you know what you're doing.
Hey, come over to our home game. You'll love this game that we play. Yeah. And it's kind of a fun game. Now, some other variations that you can make on it, instead of playing at Texas Hold'em, play at Omaha.
There you go.
Wow, talk about combinations now, right?
Yeah,
Because I mean, think
now
about
you've got a ton.
Just Omaha versus Texas Hold'em, how many different combinations you have and how many different permutations you have now, having to use 2 from your hand and only 3 from the 6 different boards that are out there.
Right. And you can play that high-low. So
oh my gosh,
we
played that high-low once. If you want a wild game, play this game 3-2-1 Omaha high-low because you'll get to the end and there'll be a betting round at the end and people will turn their hands over and not know what they have.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's so many combinations like, oh, well, I've got the nut low. Well, maybe you have the nut low for one of those permutations.
Someone could have it for another one.
The nut low on another one might actually be a lower overall hand, right?
Right.
And I remember playing once in our home game and, oh, Jason, you've got the wheel. He didn't even know, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see that.
There's a lot going on there.
There's a lot going on. So that's basically it. As far as the strategy goes, I say, just kind of be careful that the hands might be a little bigger than normal.
Right.
Ryan, one of our listeners, Ryan on Twitter, said in his home game, they morphed it into 1-2-3, which means 1 flop, 2 turns, and 3 rivers.
Huh.
We haven't played that, but I'm guessing that might be a little more manageable. Right,
maybe.
Right, because it's just 1 flop. You've got to use that flop.
Right.
So there are fewer cards out there, fewer things to give you a headache.
How about this? How about 2-1-3?
Why?
Why not? Just every time you deal it, this is going to be 2-1-3.
All right, 3-1-2.
3-1-2.
Okay.
2-1-3.
Jeez. Well, anyway, I mean that's basically it. So try to do your home game, see what you think. It is fun, but it can be nerve-wracking because, of course, cards speak in our home game, and I think in most home games, cards speak. So, you may not even know what you have.
This sounds like a Gomer Pyle game where they're sitting in the barracks. Hey, Gomer, we're going to play 3-2-1.
Right. They're going to try to take all his money, but then he ends up with a straight flush and just wins. Yeah. Hey, if anybody has a home game that they'd like us to talk about on the show, drop us a line at youcanbetonThat@gmail.com. Also, on the left-hand side of our homepage, there's a link called Poker Home Games. Click on that, and it'll take you to a page that lists all the home games we've talked about and the episodes on which we talked about them. That's going to do it for this episode. Be sure to check out our TV listings showing all the gambling-related shows coming up within the next 2 weeks. I update those listings every Wednesday using a program I wrote myself to search through all the raw American TV data. Just go to our webpage, youcanbetonThat.com, and click on the link at the top that says TV listings. The listings this week are full of fight programming for the fight this weekend and Kentucky Derby stuff. It's tons of stuff in there. Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Call our voicemail hotline at 951-292-4377. That's 951-2-WAGERS. Or you can email us at youcanbetonThat@gmail.com. Also, follow us on Twitter at YouCanBetOnThat. We always tweet when we're in a casino or on our way to a casino, and we'd love to meet up with you. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YouCanBetOnThat. And finally, head on over to iTunes and write a review on us. When you do, it helps us get new listeners. What do you got for us, Dr. Mike?
Well, I just want to say that I'm very excited about going to Vimp, and I hope that when we go to Vimp, we can somehow convince them to have a separate room with a little craps table where we don't actually win money. We win little fake chips that we then turn in for raffle tickets or something.
Yeah.
And then with those raffle tickets, we get like refrigerators, washer dryer sets, things like that. Because I will kill them at that.
Wow, you brought it all around.
I'll get a whole house.
You brought it all around the entire episode. Excellent.
I'll get a whole house full of merchandise.
Yeah.
I'm great when it doesn't count.
Yeah, okay. We'll see what they can do for us. Maybe they can accommodate us.
Maybe if I go into a casino thinking, well, this doesn't count, they're going to give me my money back.
That's true. You know what? Maybe
It's a mindset.
I'll hypnotize you.
There you
or
go.
get you drunk or something and say, yeah, Mike, I know you really want to play for real, but honestly, part of VIMP, we've got to go in here and just play this charity thing.
Yeah.
Just work your way through it. You'll win $1 million.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's my problem. I've been thinking too much.
Yeah, that's your problem. Thanks for listening, everybody.